As the chat's been talking a lot about this Behringer, let's get into gear.
Let's start with the Behringer Toro.
So the Toro is a fully analog monosynth based on I think it's a Moog Taurus 1 bass synthesizer from the 1970s. This is Behringer's own words. With its pure analog signal path, Toro is fitted with 2 VCOs capable of a 5-octave range for ground shaking basses to searing leads. Fitted with all the same classic parameters, controls found on the historic model, Toro also fully delivers the same iconic sounds, but with modern day reliability and connectivity. All in a form factor that fits. Here's the best part: it's desktop, rack mounted, and fully Euro rack compatible. And the estimated price, because it was just an announcement, is $350 US. Let's check out how it sounds, Curtis. Pull it up.
Yeah. Then we've got tuba.
That's good if you're playing an F. It's always nice.
Josh, over on the Discord, I sent you a picture of the original Moog Taurus. I think it's worth showing because it's a cool little piece of history. It's a ground synth, I guess, with like the organ foot pedals. So you could play it while you're doing guitar and things like that. I think we should show it. It looks like there may be, and chat, if you guys know, you can let us know. But it looks like there may also be a Moog desktop replica of the Taurus, because I see on Reverb a Moog Taurus 1 and it's a little desktop one. So if anybody knows, that'd be 600 compared to Behringer's 350 Eon Lake.
Yeah, 550 or something they own in the mini tour.
Over in the chat, Andy says between this and the Solina, that's like my whole shtick. Yeah, they're putting out some really cool stuff. Curtis, what's your take on it?
Yeah, all right, it exists. I wouldn't say I'm blown away by it. It's a great, but then at the same time, I'm never really blown away by bass synthesizers in their own right anyway. Like if you got a hardware synth, then you can. It's a lot more to play with than the knobs that you can play with, and it's always good. But a bass synth, you're already putting yourself in a little box, and if you're gonna do that, you might as well put yourself in a box and have a VST where you put it in the box.
So you've got a monologue behind.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna say, you say that, but you have a monologue sitting there looking all pretty.
yeah. I mean, and monologue is great. I love it. I bought it secondhand, and it was going for a really good price. And I fancy a new piece of hardware to play around with. Would I get it again? Probably not. I'd probably get the mini log. It's got some great leads on there. It's got some really good lead sound, and I use it for the lead sounds as opposed to the bass sounds. The Toro is nice. I use a VST, a Martina Keybase, which is free, and it sounds very similar to that in a way. And I that's part of my arsenal. I really like it, and so it wouldn't take me away from that. If that makes sense.
Interesting,
yeah, it wouldn't take me away from it. It's a nice one because I've got to cut a load of basses on the Nova as well. I'm all based out, and I don't know if I so I could spend $350 on the Toro, or say $650 for the Pro 800. I'd rather save up another $300, you know.
Well, I think it depends on the subjective needs of the creator who's looking at it. But just to be fair, I want to clarify, because even in the chat we have some people. David says, I have no use for a Toro. I can't even play bass. I mean, it is just a mono synth. It can play leads. It's like a Dreadbox Erebus, like back there. I mean, that's a paraphonic, but you can do 2 notes. But you know, there's a lot of fun to be had with a mono synth, and those limitations can be really cool. I've gotten some really awesome sounds from both. I have 2 mono synths up here, the Behringer MS1 and the Dreadbox Erebus, and they're both mainstays in my process, and I use them all the time. So mono synths serve their purpose and can be a lot of fun. But I get what you're saying. I mean, if you're wanting a polyphonic synth or something like that, yeah, 300 more. And then in the chat also, Benji says, Toro sounds good to me. It sounds like what I try to patch up on the modular or the Mother 32. So yeah, for bass, he says.
Yeah.
See, before we get to Elon Lake, we get a lot of our news, it seems more and more that people are just owning the fact that Behringer knock people off, which is, we won't go into semantics about whether or not that's accurate or that's a good thing or not, but the idea that they are creating entry-level hardware, that is important. I think that's important. I wouldn't go for the Toro myself, but the fact that Behringer are very much a place where if you want to start dabbling in hardware and it's a low barrier to entry, I mean, that is awesome. Like, Survey Channel has the deep one, and I wouldn't mind one of those. I'm not sure I can't afford the profit.
I definitely looked at it.
Yeah. Well, I think my hope too, with this being a thing of these very competitive entry-level prices for replicas of very coveted synths, is that it's been shown that there's a market demand. My hope is that we start seeing some more of these synths coming out from other companies and making more of a market for it, because the demand is obviously there. Eon, like, what's your take?
I totally agree with what you're saying there as well. I mean, I'm as guilty as the next. But let's start with this little thing. I mean, it sounds like a Taurus. It sounds like an original Taurus. It sounds like the pedals that people like Geddy Lee used to use back in the day. It's a particular sound. It is a fat analog monosynth sound. And let's face it, it's like Bendu says, if you've got something analog in your arsenal already, you may be able to come up with tones pretty similar to that. I mean, I've got a Sub 37 and the Behringer Model D. Both of those will do a really thick mono bass, very thick, and it's a joy. The amount of low end you can get out of those things is absolutely obscene. But I mean, there's a little bit of, unless you're pretty creative, they're a bit of a one-trick pony. I mean, they're not really. It's like you say, they're more like a three-trick pony. And I quite like getting, where they put all this effort into creating a massive, thick tone at the expense of polyphony. I like multi-tracking them.
Yeah.
Getting polyphony anyway. Oh dear, you can get some thick pads.
Yeah.
If you layer these things
Put
up.
the tuning off a little bit between each one. You get some really interesting pads from that.
I recorded the Sub 37 into Euro Rack, into the wavetable navigator, and there were 8 of them playing at once. Monstrous. Great fun. So, I mean, it fulfills a particular need. Somebody's doing something cheap, that makes things like this more accessible. I suppose that's a good thing. I like a lot of things. It's whether or not you've got a gap in your arsenal.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you are a bass or guitar player, or maybe you play keyboards as well. Maybe you want to go the full prog route and get a cape and the original one with pedals on the floor. Play it with your feet while you're guitaring. But I mean, it definitely sounds like it's supposed to sound. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to worry so much about the build quality. If they were actually making foot pedals, you'd be thinking, I don't know how cheap I want to get with something I'm going to be operating with my feet. But again, it's useful to have these old sounds. Some people prefer to go software for that though, because because of the relative flexibility of the instrument.
Well, that's where I'm coming from, in the sense that if I'm going to pay that amount of money for a piece of hardware, I want versatility, I want sound design, I want to be able to. I don't want a three-trick pony, to borrow your phrase. But I do want to see you next week in a cape.
I mean, I think there's a lot of merit to monosynths. I think there is a lot of merit to monosynths, but I mean, chat, what do you guys think? Do you guys like monosynths, or three-trick ponies, as the two people above me are coining the term for?
So if you like that clip, consider checking out our full live stream, Audionautic Deep Space Network, on YouTube, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, and you can also join us for the live stream of said podcast at 7 p.m. UTC, 11 a.m. Pacific.
Wonderful, yes. And finally, we have got the Audionautic Radio playlist, which is down in the description below. All the latest and the greatest of the underground electronica world that you see there. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, if you're looking for some new music or checking out some of the newest in electronic music, head to that link in the description, and we will see you in the next ADSN. Thanks for watching.